Let's listen to Michael Saylor's warning about how many treasury companies we could be seeing in the not too distant future.
So Strategy is the company whose phone is always going to be ringing as new companies start to enter into this market. What sense are you getting that this is really accelerating at a much faster pace than people are thinking?
I think a year ago, there was us, and then Semler and Metaplanet, which are companies with an operating strategy that adopted a Bitcoin strategy. And really, that was just a year ago, right? Came out and said that they were going to adopt a Bitcoin treasury company strategy. And now we're up to 70 companies. So if you extrapolate that out, that means that next year, right, we could be at 700 companies, right? And I think, look, success breeds interest. And we're at a time when there is just a lot of uncertainty in the economic environment, which causes companies to ask themselves, how do we create value for our shareholders? And if they go out and they just say, let's look at the top 15 companies in the world last year, you know, number one is Metaplanet. Semler follows somewhere in there, and I think we were number 14, right? Like, you would think that that would cause people to be interested. I think the other piece is, you know, a lot of folks talk about the Overton window and what's happening with the US government and the embracement of a strategic Bitcoin reserve, digital asset framework, stablecoin bills. We have an administration who's very supportive of Bitcoin. It makes everybody wake up and say, hey, what is this Bitcoin thing? Right? So I think we're early, but I think the acceleration is real. And I think, you know, from last year to this year, right? We held this conference last year in Las Vegas. I think there were about 50 to 100 attendees. This year we're at 300 attendees. And I think in this room, there's probably 400 interested folks, right? Next year, maybe we'll have 1,000. Right, so I think the acceleration is absolutely real.
The acceleration is absolutely real. I tend to agree with that. And this is the scariest thing about these treasury companies adopting Bitcoin. They're not slowing down. And this is naturally just going to drain the Bitcoin supply much quicker than most people think. Again, we did a video last week here on the channel. And again, look at that big red box. There was 27 public companies adopting Bitcoin over a 30-day period. And I ran the hypothetical thought experiment. I said, what actually happens if we continue to see one treasury company adopting Bitcoin every single day? This was 2 weeks ago. Again, not a ton of data, I know that, but we are seeing this trend accelerate. Now we've got 29 public companies adopting Bitcoin in the rolling past 30 days. So again, we've got other CEOs of public companies predicting there might be thousands, maybe 700 publicly traded companies with Bitcoin on the balance sheet. So I do think this trend is really starting to just motor along now, and it's beginning to get more and more interesting. Now, what I'm finding even more interesting is that as Bitcoin is being stripped off the exchanges, we're seeing some interesting developments happen when it comes to maybe the rhetoric. Before we get to the rhetoric, I want to do a quick check-in on where MicroStrategy is at right now. I got a couple of messages over the past couple of weeks. People are a little bit dismayed with their bags. This here is MicroStrategy at $387 per share. And I think there's a lot of confusion in the market right now why MicroStrategy is aggressively pumping in the way it is, and why other companies are, well, like Metaplanet, looking like this. This is kind of an insane chart. Let me try to get more of that hot sauce for you guys. Let me get a little bit more data. Let me take a peep here. I want to try to get you guys the full chart so you can see everything. Again, I don't like to cherry pick charts here. This is a 10-year chart that went all the way back to 2013. Have a look at how aggressive this rise has been from Metaplanet. Since they adopted Bitcoin, they're up 10,280%. Boy, my quick math serves me correctly. Is that 100x? a 120x. I believe it is. That's kind of insane when you think about it. But of course, not all treasury companies are created equally, which is interesting. Similar Scientific just kind of chopped sideways since they adopted Bitcoin. And most interestingly, GameStop, let's take a peep at that. Not a whole lot of action. That has also just been trending sideways. So who knows whether these treasury companies will be the altcoins of this cycle. I think there's another really interesting comment I want to dive into here. Bitcoin is only 7% away from its all-time high, but Bitcoin miners are about 50% away from their all-time high. This is why, again, I like to caution a lot of, I like to exercise caution, because a lot of people thought that these mining companies were just going to be the plays. A lot of people thought that these mining companies would be the ones to outperform Bitcoin in the bull run. And a lot of people probably put a lot of money into them and they've been wrecked because right now we're just not seeing it. Right platforms, a long way away from its all-time high. Marathon, have they changed their name recently? Apologies, I don't know if that's the correct Marathon. Marathon Digital? Okay, there we go. That's the one. That's also a long way away from its 75%, down from its all-time high. 83%. Okay, so again, this is why I like to exercise a lot of caution to you guys. Just be careful with what you buy. Just because it's associated with Bitcoin doesn't mean it's going to outperform Bitcoin. I don't see any institutions moving into altcoins, to be quite honest with you guys. What I'm actually seeing that's most concerning or most hilarious is altcoins are actually moving into Bitcoin. Yes, you heard me right. We're actually seeing some of the largest altcoins begin to buy Bitcoin for their treasuries. This is pretty insane, don't you think? Considering for years these guys said, yeah, you know what, we're going to create the new Bitcoin. Bitcoin's useless. Bitcoin's boring. Bitcoin has no use case. In the example of yours truly, Charles Hoskinson, he used to say, oh, but proof of stake's the revolution. Proof of work is dirty for the environment. Well, guess what they're doing now? We can see Charles Hoskinson is proposing to buy $100 million worth of Bitcoin. That's kind of insane. One of the biggest altcoins in the world. We can see here, this is a real article. This isn't fake news. This is real. We also see recently, I believe Polkadot is doing the same. This is, again, another top 10 altcoin. I might break this down in a video for you guys in the future. But we're seeing all of the biggest altcoins making a little bit of a pivot into Bitcoin. I find that absolutely fascinating. I find it very, very interesting. Because I don't see any institutions moving into altcoins. I just don't see it. Maybe I'm blind, but I just do not see it. What I do see, though, is risks on the horizon. What I do see is some really interesting developments.